to GNN. I am Ronnie Flowers.
And I'm Kim Flowers.
And we are Geometry News Network.
And now we will be going over what you guys asked for. That's right, this is the special edition of You Asked For It. We'll answer all the questions you sent us and make sure to the best of our ability you're ready to meet your examination with success.
And what I'm going to do right now, Kim, is I'm going to go and I'm going to man the phones. And so anybody that has a phone call or ask a question over email in this case, they'll be calling in.
All right, and we'll be with you in a few seconds. Welcome back to the special edition of You Asked For It. That's right, I'm so glad you're ready to go. Yes, and while we're waiting for our first call, I'll talk to you about what the test is going to be over. Again, it's just factoring. And then after you do factoring, sometimes it's fractions with factoring on the top and bottom and then canceling. Oh, it looks like we have our first call. And welcome to the special edition of You Asked For It. Go ahead and tell us your name and what's your question?
Yes, my name is Jill, and I have a question about number 8.
Number 8. Okay, the one where you have to solve by factoring.
Yeah.
Okay, well I'm going to put that one on the board and let you see the answer and then see if we're doing okay, all right?
Okay.
You've got 9x squared minus 81x equals 0. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now if this was just 9x squared minus 81 and didn't have the x, we would just factor this as a difference of squares. But because it has the x, we cannot factor this as a difference of squares. We have to think about what is the greatest common factor. There you go. And the greatest common factor is 9x. So we're going to divide that out of both terms. And when you take 9x squared divided by 9x, you're going to get just x. And when you take 81 divided by 9, you're going to get negative 9. All right, and that equals 0. Again, if this was two binomials, we would set each equal to 0. But in this one, you're still going to set both terms equal to 0. So the 9x will be equal to 0. And this binomial will be equal to 0. And then when you divide both sides by 9, you'll get x is equal to 0. And when you add 9 to both sides, you'll get x equals to 9. This is your two solutions, or x-intercepts, or we're solving, so these are your two solutions. All right, this is what you need to do. All right, did I help you?
Yeah, I got one more little question on that.
Okay.
How am I going to write my answers on the test?
How are you going to write your answers on the test? Oh, that's actually a good question because this is a online test. So on the test, you will be writing your answers like this, okay? All your answers will have no spaces. Your letters will be lowercase, so you have a lowercase x, equal sign, and then you can put 0, 9. You could also put 9, 0, either one, but do not put parentheses and do not put extra spaces, and make sure all your letters are lowercase. Very good question. Thank you for asking. Anything else?
Okay. No, that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for calling in.
Bye.
Bye.
God bless.
God bless you too. All right. Well, with that, I'm glad we were able to help there. Again, I will remind you that a test will be mostly factoring. And, if you had a difference of squares like in that problem and it didn't have x, then we would have just been able to factor this as 3x plus 9 and 3x minus 9. I'm going to go ahead and erase while we're waiting for another call. And there we are. We have another call. Hi, welcome to the special edition of You Asked For It. Please tell us your name and what is your question?
Yes, my name is Billy Bob. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Billy. Bob?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can.
All right, my question is over number 10. I got something wrong on that there thing, and I can't figure it out. And so I did number 11 correct, and it's very close to the same thing. And then number 12, I just got frustrated and just quit on it.
Well, and I understand that. You might have got number 10 correct because there was an error on the solution guide for 10. If in the denominator you had 2 times a negative 3.
Well, I knew I must have been probably correct. But, you know, it was a solution guide and everything.
Yes, and it should have been 2 times a negative 3 instead of times a negative 6. But I will go over that one and number 12 just in case.
Yep,
I'm sure it will help.
That's what I did. That's what I did.
All right. Well, there you go. So you got it right on number 10. And do you think I should go ahead and go over that one as well, or do you feel comfortable with 10?
Yeah, go ahead just to make sure I got it.
All right, I will. Number 10. All right, for 10 you have negative 3x squared plus 5x plus 1 equals 0. Now, A is equal to negative 3, B is equal to 5, and C is equal to 1. Now, if you're solving about the quadratic formula, you'll need to use the quadratic formula. So, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And now I'm going to plug in the values. So, x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 5 squared, that's 25, minus 4 times the a value of negative 3 times the c value of 1 all over 2 times the a value of negative 3, not negative 6. Now when we simplify here, we're going to have 25 minus 4 times a negative 3. Well, negative 4 times a negative 3 is a positive 12. So I have 25 plus 12. And that, of course, times 1. So plus 12, which is 37. So x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 37 over negative 6. And this is the answer, all right? And again, I made a mistake and put negative 12, or at least the solution guy did. And now we're going to go ahead and look at 12, because you mentioned you had trouble with that one as well. So let's look at 12.
Yeah, I sure did.
You did? All right. Well, let's look at 12. All right, on 12 you have...
yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yep, it's 7x squared and minus 6x plus 3 equals 0. And this is 12. Is that the same problem you have, Billy Bob?
Yeah, now, I just want to make sure on number 10.
Yes.
There's nothing else I need to do to that problem there. It says negative 5 plus or minus square root 37 over negative 6, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it, because we're not going to go to a decimal answer. This will probably be a multiple choice question on the test, and you won't need to go to the decimal answer. You'll need to look for that. And the square root of 37...
Now, just a minute. If they said that I need to round that sucker, then what? I would just put that in my calculator and just put in the negative 5 plus all that mumbo jumbo, and then divide by negative 6, and then get my answer and round it correctly. And then
That
I
is
put
correct.
negative 5 minus all that mumbo jumbo. I got square root 37 over negative 6 and get my answer. And that's see what my answers are if it said to round.
Yes, if it said to round.
Okay. I'm good. Go ahead with number 12. I'm good.
All right, so now we'll go to 12. On 12, it is the problem that we have here on the board, 7x squared minus 6x plus 3. Again, we're going to use the quadratic formula. A is 7, B is negative 6, and C is 3. So x equals the negative b. So that's the opposite of negative 6, so it's positive 6, plus or minus the square root of, well, negative 6 squared minus 4.
Now, wasn't there some kind of song that went along with
Well,
that?
there is. Let me finish this, Billy Bob, first, okay? So negative 4 times A times C all over 2A, all right? And now we're going to go ahead and simplify this expression. X equals 6 plus or minus the square root of, now that's 36 minus, well, this is 7 times 3 is 21, and 21 times 4 is 84 over 14. All right, because 7 times 2 is 14. Now, 36 minus 84, that is going to give us a negative number under the square root. And anytime you have a negative under the square root, you will not have a real answer. So I don't need to go any further. The answer to this problem is no real solution. And again, you will write that for your answer, or select that when there is a negative under the square root. And yes, Billy Bob, there is a very common song that more kids and more students and people and viewers know, and that's the Pop Goes the Weasel to that tune. And it goes, x equal negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Yep, that's it. Yeah, that one's very easy. Well, Billy Bob, I'm sorry, but we're running out of time. I know you probably want to sing a song, but we're going to have to cut you short. Yeah, well,
thank you very much.
You are welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, well, I'm glad we were able to help Billy Bob. You know, and with his problems with the quadratic formula. Always be careful when you're plugging in. Take the time to be super careful because as you've seen on the solution guide, it's easy to make a careless mistake. So always take your time and double check, especially when you get a 36 minus an 84 and a negative number under that quadratic. Okay, well, while we're waiting for the next caller, I'll go ahead and erase the board here and see what we get for the next situation and what problems still deal with that people need help with. All right. Well, we haven't. Oh, here's our next caller. Hi, welcome to our special edition of You Asked For It. Give us your name and what's your question?
My name is Joe.
Oh, well, hi, Joe. How can I help you?
Well, what I need help with is number 14. I got some number wrong.
Okay, so you need help with those exponent rules and applying them and avoiding careless mistakes. All right. Well, with exponent rules, we know the rules, and we can apply them at different times. So you may see one person explain this and do it different than I, and they get the same answer as I get, because there is more than one way to do this. So that is hopefully not going to cause us any problems. So I'm going to explain it what works for me on this problem, all right? And here we go. Number 14. We have x to the 6th power, y to the negative 6, z to the 0, and I'm sorry, that is not negative 6, that is negative 8, y to the negative 8, over x to the 8, y to the negative 3, and y to the 2nd power. All right, when I work on this problem, and I have it written, the first thing I like to take care of is anything to the 0 power, because anything to the 0 power is 1. So z to the 0 is 1, therefore z is not even there, because it's 1 times the top, and that would just give us the top without that being there. All right, now the next thing I like to do is, if possible, combine. So if I have two variables that are the same in either the numerator or the denominator, I would like to add their exponents. And I look at this problem, and in the denominator, I have y to the negative 3 and y to the positive 2. Because I was multiplying, I want to add the exponents. So if I do, I'm going to have, instead of y to the negative 3 times y to the 2nd, I'm going to have y to the negative 1. Now I have no more variables in the numerator that are the same and no variables in the denominator that are the same. So I'm going to now go ahead and move, I like to move mine around to where all my exponents are positive. All right, and so I have x to the 6th, and then beside x to the 6th is y to the negative 8. I'm going to move that to the denominator, y to the positive 8. Now in the bottom I have x to the 8th beside y to the negative 1, which now I'm going to move to the top as y to the positive 1. All right, now I have nothing left but the rule of when you divide variables that are the same, then you can subtract the exponents. And so I'm going to now subtract the exponents. I have x to the 6th over x to the 8th. I'm going to take the larger number is 8, so 8 minus 6 is 2, and I'm going to place my answer where the larger exponent was, and it was in the denominator, so the answer 2 is in the, x to the 2 is in the denominator. Now I have y to the 1 over y to the 8th. Again, subtract. 8 minus 1 gives us 7, and y to the 7th power will be in the denominator. And on top, you have absolutely nothing left in the numerator, but you cannot leave it with nothing on top. And so you put the placeholder of a 1 in the numerator. And so your answer is 1 over x squared y 7th. All right. And then I noticed that 15 is very similar to
That's
14.
That's very helpful.
All right, would you like me to also do 15?
Yes, and I know there's a song that goes with this, and so I really like the song.
Yes, one of our sponsors is Mr. Flowers Math Songs, and he is a sponsor of our program, and he is always excited and helpful to provide lots of math songs, and there is an Exponent Rules song. And so I encourage you to go to that website and listen to that song and sing until you get the rules memorized if necessary. All right, and now...
My favorite part is Exponent Rules.
You know what, but I'm sorry, Joe, we prefer people not to sing on the show. Yes, unless I'm doing it. Okay, and so here we go, number 15. All right, and so x to the 5th power is in the times y to the negative 1 times x to the negative 2 over y to the 1st power times x to the 3rd power, and all of this is raised to the 2nd power. Again, let's follow those rules I said. All right, look in the numerator. Do you have two variables that are the same? And the answer is yes. I have x to the 5th and x to the negative 2. So I'm going to add those exponents. 5 plus a negative 2, and that gives us 3. So instead in the top, we'll have x to the positive 3, and that'll be in the numerator. All right, and now look at the denominator. Do you have any variables in the denominator that are the same? I mean, yeah, variables, and the answer is no. So we've done all that. Now let's move our negative exponents till they're all positive. All right, so I'm going to rewrite. We have x to the 3rd in the top. We have y to the negative 1. I'm going to move that to the denominator. So we have y in the bottom. Now in the denominator you have y, so we'll leave it there. And we have x cubed. All right. All to the 2nd power. Now we're going to look at seeing if there's any more combining we can do. And then again, now in the denominator I have y times y. So this is the same thing as y to the 2nd power. Or again, if I add the exponents, 1 plus 1. So I'm going to erase that and put y squared. Now we have x cubed over x cubed. Well, that means we can subtract the exponents. So 3 minus 3 is 0, and anything to the 0 power is 1. So these pretty much cancel. So this is what I'm left with. A 1, okay, a 1 over y squared raised to the 2nd power. Now, when you have something raised to the 2nd power, you will distribute your exponent to both exponents in both the numerator and the denominator, to everything in the numerator and everything in the denominator. 1 raised to the 2nd power is 1, so 1 squared is 1. And then we'll take the 2 times this 2 and we'll multiply those. So it's y to the 2 times 2, and that's y to the 4th. And so the answer for this problem is 1 over y to the 4th. Okay, did that help you out, Joe?
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you so much for calling in, Joe. And we appreciate your call. I hope you have a great day.
Good evening.
All right, good evening.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, we're almost done with our questions. Let me go ahead and just bring out that one of the questions in the last ones is asking about the exponent rules. And so on the exponent rules, you have the 0 exponent, that's one rule. You have the exponent rules where if you're multiplying, you add. You have the exponent rule when you're dividing, you subtract. You have the exponent rule when you raise a power to a power, you multiply. If you know those rules, then you have what you need. Hey, and it looks like we have another caller. Hi, welcome to the special edition of You Asked For It. Go ahead and give us your name and ask your question.
Hi, yes, my name is Sally.
Well, hi, Sally.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely.
I've got a question over number 18.
18. Oh, yes, that makes sense. Okay, the one with the square root. All right, well,
I remember on the quizzes, there was a 3 where the square root was, and it was like a 3 square root thingy.
Oh,
and that
yes.
really confused me.
The cube root in the quizzes, yes. Yes, and of course...
Oh, it's called a cube root.
That's right. It's called a cube root. Yes, Sally.
Okay.
Yes, and I think you might mention, did you find the homework on Monday night very challenging compared to what we taught?
Yes, it was so hard.
Yes, we had some other callers, not today, but some other on our social site that had let us know that seemed a little more challenging for them. So, you know what?
I did much better on this review. This was the only question I had.
Oh, well, that's great. Then that means you're a lot better off on the test. So let me go ahead and go over this question and the details that you might want to know about it. All right, so let's go ahead and look at that.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so on number, I think it is 18, you have the square root of x to the 5th and y to the 3rd. All right, now, Sally, when you take the square root of something, what is the number or the root? What is the number of that root? Do you know?
The square root of x to the 5th? That just seems kind of weird.
Okay, well, when I told you it's the cube root, that was because there was a little 3 there, right? In the root symbol? All right, when it's a square root, what's the little number? Do you know?
Square root, square, like if I square something, it's a 2.
It's a 2. All right, good job. All right, so here we go. So that's like the square root is 2. What that means is like if you take the square root of 9, well, 3 times 3 is 9. So every pair, you know the square root of it. And so that means you can take it out. So when I think of x to the 5th, it is the same thing as x times x times x times x times x. It is x multiplied by itself 5 times. So I'm going to circle every pair. And there is one pair. There's another pair. So that means we're taking the square root of x squared, which is x. It's the same thing as taking the square root of 3 squared is 3. All right? And then the square root...
Is it also the same thing like if I had x to the 4th times x, because x to the 4th times x is x to the 5th.
Now, hold on now.
I can just take the square root of x to the 4th and just take half of that even number?
Well, maybe. Yeah, that's probably another way to do it. Yes. If I wanted to write this instead of x to the 5th.
I like taking halves of even numbers. That's easy.
Oh, yes. Anytime we take a half of an even number, we have no remainder. And in square roots, when you take half of an even number, that means there's no square root left. But if you take half of an odd number, what do we have? A remainder, right?
That doesn't work.
That's right. So that means the square root symbol will remain around, okay? So if you take the square root of an odd exponent, you will have something you have a square root that remains. So let me go ahead and finish up here on this. All right, so the square root of x squared is x. The square root of x squared is also x. And then we're left with the square root of x, all right? And then y cubed, well, again, you could do it, as Sally mentioned, she seemed to think that she remembers doing it as y squared times y. But you could also see it as y times y times y. All right, so every pair, I know the square root of y squared is y, and the y remains. So the x and the y will remain inside the square root. So the final answer is x squared y, square root of x, y. All right, so let me just bring out, if I take this same problem, and I made it the cube root, so you can see what is the difference between a square root and a cube root, because I did notice you asked about that. However, the cube root will not be on your examination. So,
Jesus.
Yes, you're welcome, and the Lord is good, yes. You know, we just celebrated Easter this past Sunday. Did you go to church?
Yes, I do. I love Jesus with all my heart, with all my soul, and with all my mind. He does so much good for me.
Well, that's good. Okay, so here we're going to look at this, and it's the cube root of x to the 5th. And remember, I could write this out as x times x times x times x times x, because it's x to the 5th power. But this time, instead of every pair, we're looking for every set of 3. And there is one set of 3 and 5. All right, so if I do that, well, that means there's just one x, because I can take the cube root of x cubed and I would get x. But I'm left with 2 inside. And then y cubed, I can take this cube root of y cubed, that's just y. So the answer here is xy, and I've got it all spread out, so I'm going to push them together a little better. The answer is xy cube root of x squared. One of the things that's kind of nice to remind yourself at this point is that remember that all radicals are exponents, okay? It's just the x are also exponent, bases with an exponent, but the exponent is a fraction. All right, so let me just remind you of that right here. Okay, I'm going to back this little part here. And so this cube root of x to the 5th y cubed would be the same thing as x to the 5 over 3 and y to the 3 over 3. All right, so if I do that, y to the 3 over 3 is just y to the first power, and you'll notice we have y to the first power in our answer. Now, x to the 5/3, well, if we take 5 and divide it by 3, you're going to get 1 with a 2 remainder, or 1 2/3. That is correct. So we changed our improper fraction to a mixed fraction. Notice we have 1 outside and 2/3. Well, that's x to the 2/3. Well, this is x to the 1 times x to the 2/3. Notice it's the third root of x squared, and this is x to the 1. Again, though, don't get too worried about that. You will see those kind of problems in the next year, but you will not see those on our exam. All right, did it help you out?
That was so helpful. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. Well, we're about to run out of time, so I'll go ahead and let you go. And I appreciate you calling in. All right, guys, well, we are really getting close to being out of time. So let me go ahead and wrap up the questions that finally came in. I don't know by our social media site that we also had some that called in that wanted to know about the structure of the test. Would the test be all short answer, all multiple choice? What is the test? And the answer to that is that it is all going to be a mixture, it is a mixture of short answer and multiple choice. So some will be multiple choice, some will be short answer. And we actually gave you, while I was explaining the problems, I actually gave you hints as to the questions of 19 and 20, which are the ones that you don't know exactly what they look like. But if you know what we talked about here, and you listen to those little details I gave every now and then, I actually told you what you need to know for those problems. You know, we're doing the best we can with our situation to try to make sure that you're taken care of. So that's why we created our special edition of You Asked For It, because we thought we got to find a way to answer your questions. So just remember, at GNN, we're all about you. And I'm going to call in my anchor to end it out. See you in a little bit.
Well, Kim, that was so exciting.
It was wonderful being able to answer questions of our viewers.
It was, and I got to talk to each one of those people before they talked to you, and they were some really, really neat kids.
They were some great, and every one of our viewers are super special to us, and we really miss getting to see them. But you know, this is where we are, and so we're making the best of a tough situation.
That's exactly right.
And we appreciate you.
So remember, you can always email us if you have any questions still after this. Make sure you just email us, okay?
Or reach out to us on our social media site. That's the Google Classroom.
That's exactly right. And I am Ronnie Flowers.
And I'm Kim Flowers.
And we are with Geometry News Network.